Let's talk about the Conor McGregor High Court alleged rape trial. Nikita and is suing Conor McGregor and his friend over an alleged rape in a Dublin hotel. Both men deny the allegations. So the key thing to understand here, though, at the outset is that this is a civil case. It's not a criminal case. It's a civil case, and Nikita Hand is the plaintiff, and she's basically suing for damages over the alleged rape. She's been giving evidence there all week, and she's been in the witness box for 4 days. That's not something to be diminished or taken for granted. It's not for the light-hearted, or the faint-hearted rather. It's a difficult place to be. She's been giving evidence in the civil trial. She says that McGregor brutally raped and battered her in a Dublin hotel 6 years ago. She's seeking damages from him and from a friend of McGregor's who was there on that occasion as well, James Lawrence. The incident is alleged to have happened in the Beacon Hotel in Dublin, where she claims that she was raped. On Friday, however, this week, she was shown CCTV footage from the Beacon Hotel from December of 2018. She said she had no memory of large amounts of her time there, but from her perspective and from an evidential perspective, she's shown in a lift with Mr. Lawrence at 6:51 p.m. on the evening of the alleged rape. She claims that the rape happened earlier in the afternoon. Senior counsel for Mr. Lawrence put it to Miss Hand that she was seen in the lift carrying a drink and that she, quote, doesn't look like someone who has been violently raped. And he said that she was being, quote, affectionate towards Mr. Lawrence in, quote, biting his ear and kissing him. Miss Hand told John Fitzgerald, senior counsel, that she had no memory of being in the lift with Mr. Lawrence on that occasion. He also put it to Miss Hand that she and Mr. Lawrence and a driver left the hotel at about 7 p.m. and returned at 7:30 p.m. via the car park. Miss Hand again said she had no memory of leaving or coming back to the hotel. Counsel said that later then at 10:17, Miss Hand and Mr. Lawrence are seen hugging and leaving the hotel for the final time arm in arm. Again, Miss Hand said she had no memory of doing so. Senior counsel for Mr. Lawrence put it to her, he said, "You don't look like someone distressed by being violently raped earlier." And Miss Hand responded, "I am drunk and stumbling off walls. I don't agree with you." Mr. Fitzgerald then put it to Miss Hand that she had told Gardaí she was not at all attracted to Mr. Lawrence, but he put it to Miss Hand that she was acting in a playful manner on CCTV towards Mr. Lawrence on the night, which, quote, looks like the opposite. Miss Hand insisted that, "I'm going to tell you, I just can't remember." She said that she saw herself on CCTV but had no memory of the images because, quote, her mind was gone. "I was completely drunk. My mind went." Mr. Fitzgerald, senior counsel, put it to Miss Hand that when Mr. Lawrence and she left the hotel for 20 minutes before returning, that they had been, quote, kissing and decided to go back to the room to continue the intimacy. Miss Hand denies this. He also put it to Miss Hand that she and Mr. Lawrence's kissing, quote, developed to the point where you had consensual sex and used a condom and another for sex again. Miss Hand denies this. She says, "I think this is a made-up story." Senior counsel then had to put it to Miss Hand that she was trying to edit James Lawrence out of this case by saying she'd no memory because it was not a good look for Miss Hand to have consensual sex with a friend of Mr. McGregor after accusing Mr. McGregor of raping her. Miss Hand insisted, "I know what happened in that room." She said Gardaí had taken clothes and underwear she was wearing and that they had been damaged by Mr. McGregor pulling at them when he allegedly raped her. In relation to Mr. Lawrence's claim that he had consensual sex with her, she said she was not attracted to Mr. Lawrence, who she said had been seen her crying on her bruises. She said, "I would not have consented." Miss Hand's manager then at the salon, the hair salon where she worked, Emer Brennan, she gave evidence, she said that staff went for their Christmas party on December the 8th, and they returned to the salon where the staff drank and played music until about 7 o'clock in the morning. Miss Brennan said Miss Hand rang her to say that she'd be at Miss Brennan's house on the night of December the 9th and told her that she was with McGregor in a hotel, and she alleged that he raped her. Miss Brennan said Miss Hand had texted her on the way to Miss Brennan's house to say that she was, quote, black and blue and broken. When she went inside Miss Brennan's house, Miss Hand took off her jacket. Miss Brennan said she could see bruising on Miss Hand's arm. Miss Brennan then said the plaintiff, Miss Hand, told her McGregor had choked her 3 times, letting her go each time to breathe, and that she'd given up fighting and biting the defendant and, quote, let him do what he wanted to her because, quote, all she could see was her daughter's face. Miss Brennan took photos of some of the injuries, but later deleted them and texts from Miss Hand at Miss Hand's request. A detective sergeant, John Ryan, gave evidence. He said that he'd made notes of 2 meetings with Miss Hand, once at her mother's house and again when the plaintiff was speaking to a doctor at the sexual assault treatment unit on the morning of Monday, December the 10th, 2018. He said the detective sergeant said that Miss Hand was extremely distressed and said she was afraid her attacker would kill her. The Garda said that later that day he asked Miss Hand to make a statement, but Miss Hand said she was terrified and would not be pressing charges. Miss Hand did go to the Gardaí in January 2019, but was devastated when the Director of Public Prosecutions decided not to criminally prosecute either man because there was, quote, no reasonable prospect of convictions. Earlier on Friday, the jury at the civil trial told the judge they saw somebody pointing a mobile phone at them on Thursday from the upstairs public gallery and were worried that any photos or filming would be circulated. And recording and photography is prohibited in the court area, said Mr. Justice Alexander Owens. He sent a Garda to the gallery. He said it's contempt of court to take photos of the jury. It's totally unacceptable, and there'll be steps taken in the event that anyone is suspected of that, said Mr. Justice Owens. He was hearing the 4th day of evidence in the trial. The important thing to reiterate again is that this trial is a civil trial. That means that the standard of proof in this trial is not like a criminal trial. The standard of proof in a criminal trial is beyond reasonable doubt. The standard of proof in a civil trial is on the balance of probability. So Miss Hand must prove on the balance of probability that Conor McGregor and the other man, Mr. Lawrence, raped her on the day in question, December 9th or thereabouts. There has been graphic evidence given earlier in the week from medical evidence as to Miss Hand's injuries, and we've heard, as I say, fairly graphic evidence about bruising and injuries and so on. The difficulty with the evidence that's come out in the last day or so is this image of Miss Hand in the lift with Mr. Lawrence in a sort of a friendly or amicable situation where, as Mr. Lawrence's counsel puts it to her, it wouldn't be consistent with somebody who had earlier in the afternoon, been subject to a rape, a brutal rape, in which she suffered injuries. So that may be a difficulty for Miss Hand. Nevertheless, that is the evidence that we've heard so far. This trial is similar to the trial in the United States involving Donald Trump and E. Jean Carroll. You may recall that E. Jean Carroll brought a civil case against rape or against Trump for sexual assault, and she was successful, and she was awarded millions of dollars for the rape by Donald Trump of her previously in previous years. But that was a civil case, it wasn't a criminal case. So this case is similar in so far as if Nikita Hand is successful, and it being a civil case, it being a civil wrong she's trying to prove, then she's entitled to be compensated. So we're looking at compensation in a similar way that E. Jean Carroll brought the civil case against Donald Trump. The outcome of this case, if Nikita Hand is successful in proving her case on the balance of probability, remember that she was raped brutally raped by one or both of these men, and that she suffered injuries and she's entitled therefore to be compensated for the civil wrong as a consequence, well then that's what you're looking at the end of this, if she's successful. That's the first thing. Second thing to be absolutely clear about is the balance of probability is the standard of proof required in this case, not beyond reasonable doubt. If the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, brought this case, it would be a criminal case, and the Director of Public Prosecutions, on behalf of the rest of society, is charged with prosecuting crime in the country, in the state. The Director of Public Prosecutions must be concerned about reaching the standard of proof and the likelihood of succeeding, and the standard of proof for the DPP in a criminal case is beyond a reasonable doubt. So the Director of Public Prosecutions declined to prosecute this case on the basis that prosecution, or conviction rather, was, I think he described it as unlikely or something of that nature. I think that's the evidence. But that's why we've got a civil case as opposed to a criminal case, and why compensation will be the outcome, not jail or any criminal sanction. The other question that's come up here online and has been asked quite a bit is, why is there a jury here? Why is this a jury trial? It's a civil case. The right to a trial by jury was, or is, very restricted in civil cases. Generally it would be confined to the likes of defamation or cases involving false imprisonment and trespass to the person. So there are restrictions on the right to a jury trial in claims for damages for personal injuries, except false imprisonment and trespass to the person brought about by the 1988 Courts Act 1998 or 1988. So the bottom line is, this is a bit unusual insofar as the right to a trial by jury goes back hundreds of years, and it's a fundamental right, but it has been curtailed and restricted by legislation down through the years. Nevertheless, and is not widely accepted in personal injury cases, except those involving false imprisonment and trespass. And I presume that is the basis on which Nikita Hand has brought her case, that clearly she's alleging that there was trespass to the person. She claims that she was raped, and therefore she has elected for trial by jury. So that's why it's a jury trial. It's an unusual feature, and wouldn't happen in the circuit court for personal injuries case, I don't believe, but this is the High Court. Hope you find the video useful. If you do, I'd appreciate if you gave the thumbs up down below, and you may be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel.